This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z. I'm Matt Fonslow, and tonight I have the pleasure of welcoming two people that I've been on podcasts recently with. One, Jeff Barnes with Shepherd Automotive, and Zack McClain with Elite Automotive Solutions. Before we get rolling here, too quick, let me thank our sponsor, NAPA AUTOTECH Training. Are you tired of searching for trained technicians? If so, let NAPA AUTOTECH help you build a technician with their Build a Tech program. These 3-day courses cover one of 4 topics: brakes, electrical, steering and suspension, or HVAC, through a combination of classroom lecture, hands-on, and utilizing training mock-ups. Visit napaautotech.com. Well, thanks guys for joining me tonight. We're just kind of talking before this, and really I think I'm just going to turn it over to Jeff to get us rolling here.
I met Zack at ASTE 2.5 years ago.
You're still friends with him?
Yeah. Yeah. I was introduced to him by Keith Perkins. He was hanging out with that group. And so Zack and I had a few classes together, and we just kind of ended up around each other most of the time at that conference. One of the things he told me right before he left our final class was that he was leaving the industry and that he was fed up with it and he was going back to college and moving on. He was not the only one who said something like that. My other tech that was with me had said that he met another technician that had told him that he was leaving the industry and he was fed up with it. And I thought he was talking about Zack. And he said, no, this was a totally different person. So that kind of hit me that I flew, 1,500 miles to the other side of the country to this conference, and so did Zack. But we were there under totally different circumstances, I guess. And he's not the only one that has that outlook on this industry. But I fear that if more and more people show up to these events, because we are all friends and we are all interested in this, but they have this certain sour taste in their mouth of the industry, and they can convince other people to give up and leave. Other technicians that may be showing up to one of these events for their first time, that may be on the fence, and kind of convince their boss to send them to something like this, and then they meet somebody like that and they say, you know what, he's right. I'm fed up. I'm done.
Well, like somebody that's rah cheerleader can sometimes kind of go in the other direction past reality, to where you overlook a lot of the issues and just get really, pumped up or passionate about what you're doing, at least in the short term, right? We all kind of know about seminar high. When you go to a training conference and you come back just really charged up to go for it and get back to cars and all that, kind of an excitement. Somebody that's the opposite, like fed up, they kind of make you a little more cynical, a little more critical of what's going on and pulling you down probably further than reality as well, right? The reality is more in the middle, but I agree wholeheartedly that it kind of spreads around, and it's not without merit, right? We're not talking about like a singular person in a very specific situation that's gotten passion sucked out of them, or just, it's not even passion, just the drive to do it anymore, right? Just, I got to get out of here. It's nationwide. Not everybody necessarily, but it's just now a 9 to 5, right? They're there to collect the paycheck. They know what they have to do, how hard they have to work to get the desired result, and waiting for something else better to come along.
I don't want to put Zack in a bad light. Everything that he says is true. Every bit of it. I've never heard any lie come out of his mouth. And I think all of us have experienced the bad nature of this business in one form or another at one point or another. And all three of us on this podcast are probably about 10 years apart. So, as far as age range goes, as far as our mentality, we're all about the same mentality wise, for our age range, energy wise and stuff too. But as far as the year range that we came into the industry, things have changed a lot. Zack got in kind of at the worst time, I think, and just got his nose bloodied, and I don't want to say he's out for vengeance, but he can be he can be pretty strong sometimes. So
I'm kind of anxious to hear his story.
I've tried to listen. This short introduction, I really wanted to listen to understand, more than listening to respond. And what Jeff said is absolutely true. Your words have power, right? I do believe that I've probably been a whiner. I've probably opened my mouth when I shouldn't have in the past, but it wasn't for no reason at all. It was all valid concerns and valid issues with the industry. However, I probably should think more about what weight my words have carried. Whenever I go to an event or I talk to a technician, and I used to be an educator, so I played a direct role in influencing people as they progressed into the industry. I should have known better, I guess, is a phrase to use. Be careful what I say, because no matter how I feel, I shouldn't tarnish the image that someone else has for this industry, because there's a lot of positives going on. I can't be negative.
When I was kind of rattling that all off, it wasn't like so much aimed at you specifically at all, or just anybody. If they're upset or cynical or whatever with the profession or where they're at, they can be 100% honest for their situation. They're 100% honest and accurate. But for somebody that they may be talking to at a trade show or a training class, whatever, that may not be exactly true for them. And it's not like pointing fingers or blaming or anything, and not even warning people to be careful what you say. It's just kind of a awareness of, if I'm sitting next to you telling you how great it is, just how awesome this profession is and how good it's been to me and all this stuff I've been able to do, that's not necessarily accurate of the entire profession, right? My experience, where I'm at, luck of the draw, career-wise at the shop or position at the shop or any of that. And the same goes for the other direction too, where it's like, I got to get out of this. You know what? That fleet job's looking really good about now. Or I think I'm just going to go drive truck, man. I can make more money and I think I'll just drive truck. And they're not wrong. Like, for their specific situation, they're probably right, but it doesn't necessarily represent the profession as a whole. That's really all it was. It's not calling anyone a liar or exaggerating or anything of that nature at all.
All three of us have a valid point, but I never saw the perspective that Jeff had. So I think there's some value in this discussion, a lot of value, actually.
I guess one example, I'm hoping to hear more about yours specifically, but I just caught this video on YouTube. Yeah, his name's Nick. I probably shouldn't even try to say what his last name is, but I want to say it's like Nick Engley or something like that.
Is it Nick Nakai?
That could be it. But he starts out, and his YouTube channel is a few years old, and he starts out, I think he's a Toyota technician, dealer tech, and he bounces around. Like, he's at a Toyota dealer for a while. Then I think he goes to like BMW, and then he's back to Toyota, and then I think he went somewhere else. Well, I think within this last year, he's completely out of auto repair. He's at a fleet shop working on everything from light trucks and trailers to semis and trailers. He loves it. I think he misses cars, but a lot of the BS is gone. You know, like, he's getting a good salary. He's getting paid all the time. He's not fighting for hours. He's not racing a clock. If he's got to go drive 45 minutes to pick up a truck or trailer or both and drive it back, he gets paid the whole time. You know, I get it. Comparing that $10,000 vehicle in your bay versus that $100,000 or more semi that's a company vehicle, commercial account, that vehicle makes that company money, and every minute it's sitting in your bay is costing them. They don't want you calling them with a price. They want you to call them when it's done. I get that difference, but we're going to hemorrhage talent. And we don't know if he was a really good tech or not. I'm not going to say he is or isn't. He could have been phenomenal. We're hemorrhaging really good technicians to other entities that require just a fraction of their skill sets.
I would agree with that statement. I think that the root core message that Jeff really wanted to get to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, is when you are leaving, it's almost like you don't have to stand at the door and give, your 99 theses and nail it to the door. You can leave, right? And if you're not part of the solution, you're only creating problems by continuing to spew negativity. And don't get me wrong, I think this industry is well deserving of the criticism and some of the negative comments that it gets. But if you're like me and you're actively trying to find your way out for whatever reason, whether you dislike the industry or you have other career aspirations, there's no need to stir the pot or to drag everyone else down with you, so to speak. Am I hitting that core message, Jeff?
Yes. This is so tough because I'm not just saying that about you. You're not the only one I've had technicians that I've worked with who were in the same mindset and the same perspective, I guess. Like you're telling me all this, stuff that's gone on, and I'm like, well, crap, I've been dealing with that for like 12, 13, 14 years, and it's better now. I hate to be like, how the older generation is just like, what do they say? I walked to school uphill both ways in the snow, but we have. I mean, I don't know about, Matt, because you have a different prerogative, I guess. You came in to the industry, in the late 90s? That was kind of the end of the heyday, I guess, from what most people told me. I wasn't in it then, but you had that experience of it being good. Whereas when I came in, of course, I'd spent 6 or 7 years as a small engine tech first, and that was just horrible. And that's why I came to the auto industry and then went, oops.
Well, I think if you Google it, you might find a editorial in, I want to say, Motor Magazine. I think the editor at the time was John Lipin. And I had emailed him and talked to him on the phone, and I was ready to just bail. Like, I was ready to be done with the fixing cars because, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to exaggerate, but I suppose it was probably well over 10,000 at the time. Dollars of my own money invested in tools. And I think I was working for the best independent shop in town at the time. I really do. The labor rate at the time, I think, was $65 an hour. It might have been 70. I want to say it was 65. But I was making less per hour than I could have made at the Red Wing Shoe Factory. And that bothered me. That bothered me so bad because I could go work there and it wouldn't be hard at all. I'd probably bore myself to death. It would not be challenging. I would make more money per hour. I would have a really nice benefits package, health insurance, life insurance, short-term, long-term disability, a retirement, 401k. It was like, what am I doing here? How stupid do I have to be doing this for a living? I just remember structuring the question on how do I go to my boss and what can I do to help the shop do better so that I can do better. It's a short editorial. It's not like there's this lengthy response from him on what to do or even all that much help on the phone. But yeah, it finally came down to kind of almost threatening to quit, getting a few pay bumps and scheduled pay bumps that finally at least got me over the freaking factory. I think there's other places I could have went and made more, maybe even some other shops that were paying on commission, but I would have been doing stuff I did not like to do. This shop, I got to do what I like to do and stuff like that. But it's not like I got into this and right away it was just all sunshine and rainbows. There was many times where I was questioning my sanity. Like, how smart can I really be to keep doing this? And it's like, you're not that smart. You just can't be that smart. You might be smart enough to fix this car. You're dumb enough to do this for a living. That's kind of what I was telling myself.
I think we're all probably reflecting because as you were describing that, I was drawing parallels. Like, I don't want to turn this into an episode about my experience in the automotive industry, but I started my career in 2013. So this marks 10 years for me this year. And when I first entered the industry, I was gung ho, loved cars. Just all I wanted to do was diagnose, repair, and maintain vehicles. And I started out in the heavy duty diesel industry, and then I went back to automotive, which I had a formal education in. And roughly the 5-year mark, I was pretty disillusioned, I guess would be a good term. And I had an opportunity to go teach. I left the repair industry, day to day, even though I didn't leave the automotive industry as a whole. And I guess I could say I saw the other side, right? As you were describing the boot factory example, you had a 401k, you had, good pay. You had all these things. And I experienced that. I mean, I didn't have amazing pay. I was a teacher, but I mean, I had amazing benefits. I had health insurance. I had those things that I had never experienced it. And I guess it kind of soured me even more for the industry. I was like, where was this when I was a tech? As I progressed through my career and I had to move jobs for my wife and her career, I just couldn't see myself continuing in this industry as a technician. You know, I couldn't see myself in a bay. And I just got more bitter, more upset. Like, why did I waste my time? I felt like it was a waste of my career. Like I had set myself back. I feel a lot of those same emotions or descriptions that you were giving about the boot factory example. I think I had a similar experience.
Yeah, and it really took, I don't know if the skill gap is quite the right terminology, but certainly the shrinking of the talent pool to start driving things up. You know, now being a tech is much better than it was. I mean, at least for me, even 10, 15 years ago, it's way better now.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I don't think there's a shrinking of the talent. I think what used to be the talent was already very, very, very small. Cars were just easier to work on. Those guys were not the talent. If they'd have stayed, they would not be the talent right now. I think the talent right now is the young guys that understand computers and cell phones, and I mean, I can use one, but these guys that are, I don't know, what's a Raspberry Pi? You know what I mean? Like that's a computer. I've never dealt with all that. These guys are doing some crazy stuff. I hate to be that way, but I kind of feel like as a diagnostician, when I came in to the industry, what would have been considered the smart guys around town, they were knowledgeable. They had seen everything. They could remember everything. And they got out, not because they were old, but a lot of them got out because they didn't want to work on the new cars. So if they were truly talented, they would still be around, I think, if they were physically able.
For 98 years, the NAPA name has meant quality parts and service. It also reflects top quality training programs to help you build a more successful vehicle repair business. No doubt, the technician shortage is impacting everyone, but you're not facing this battle alone. NAPA has the solution by making NAPA AUTOTECH training available near you. NAPA AUTOTECH provides automotive aftermarket technicians career development opportunities through structured, disciplined, measured, and high-quality technical instruction, no matter the technician or service advisor's skill level. This instruction enhances understanding of vehicle systems, increases first-time repair capability, and overall customer satisfaction. It also prepares technicians to become ASE certified. It's a fact technicians who receive training to improve their knowledge and skills have a higher sense of job satisfaction. This reduces technician turnover and increases productivity, directly improving a shop's profitability. It is vital to the success of a shop's business that today's technicians are equipped to diagnose and repair today's complex vehicles. With our ever-changing technology, the technician's knowledge and skills need to be updated and refreshed on a regular basis. As you labor over the decision of whether to send your techs to get their skills sharpened, keep in mind, NAPA AUTOTECH training is an investment, not an expense, and it's available to all. Much of NAPA AUTOTECH's training is offered in more than one format to accommodate varieties of learning styles and training preferences so each person can maximize their learning. Whether you're more of a hands-on person or enjoy learning at your own pace, NAPA AUTOTECH is here to provide you with the training you need in the format that works best for you. To learn more about what NAPA AUTOTECH offers, contact NAPAAutotech.com. I would say I come from a small sample size, and the ones that I know that got out were going to like municipalities, fleet services, farm implement, stuff like that, where they're just kind of a fraction of what they used to do. In some cases, more. So if a lot of them, they went and worked for like the county or the city, they're not working on just vehicles anymore. They're working on the snow plows and lawnmowers, whatever. But the flat rate portion or the production stuff is kind of off to the wayside. It's, of course they want to get stuff done, but it's not quite the same pressure. It was more like, let's get it done right. That's the stuff I got to see more of. I'm trying to think of people that could really go early on, when I started versus as the cars started getting more and more complex, when we started getting more multiplexing and OBD2 was really showing up in the bays, how many would leave because they just like they couldn't do it anymore? And offhand, I can't think of any. I'm not saying there isn't any, but offhand, I can't think of any.
Well, I've worked with a lot of different, service advisors and stuff over the years, and they've all told me that, I worked at this place or I worked at this dealership, and when they brought in digital inspections on a tablet, like, anybody who was over the age of 50 just walked. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And they just leave, So maybe it's not even necessarily the technology on the cars that drove those people away. And I'm not saying they were the top technicians, but they certainly were. I mean, they would have had to have had experience, at least being that age.
I have spent this week getting my teeth kicked in by a 1998 Ford Escort. So I will agree cars are much more difficult in the big picture grand scheme of things, but nightmares have existed since the automotive industry became a thing. I'm sure there's guys that got their butt kicked by Model Ts. So, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I can only assume. To get back to that point that you had made to me, because this is just burning me up on the inside. Whenever I go to a training event, and I'm leaving the industry and you've actually given me a hard time. What are you doing at these events? I thought you were leaving. I really need to think carefully about what I say, how I say things when I interact with their technicians, because we all socialize. We're all in groups. We all meet people. And when we go to these events, what do? We congregate. We share war stories. We share our thoughts on the industry. All it takes is one guy to plant the seed into that technician that's on the fence, and he's gone. I really don't have a dog in that fight per se, right? I'm just a guy sharing my thoughts, but the power that I hold to influence those technicians of today, and even potentially them to influence technicians that might grow into it in the future, I think that's the danger, right? I think that's what's been eating me up. Sorry if I derailed us, but that is stuck in the back of my head. I had to get it out.
I'm trying to think about what it would be like for you if you'd have hung on for another, 2 or 3 years. If you'd have switched shops enough. I've only worked at 2 automotive shops. Now, I've worked at them multiple times. I haven't greased the wheels on my toolboxes in 10 years, so I don't have a lot of perspective on doing that. But from a lot of guys that I've talked to, they say you just keep changing shops until you find a good one. And I know about where you live, and I know about the shops around that area and stuff too. And so, sometimes you may have to pack up and move. And I know that you've done that before. So I'm just trying to think about where my turning point would have been. I mean, like right now, like I want to stay in the industry, but I might shift what I do, just because of stress and other factors on my body and stuff, because I just don't want to do the physical stuff anymore. I want to get out of it early enough to where I don't wreck my body so that I can enjoy the rest of my life. But I don't want to leave. I'm trying to think about the turning point for me so I guess I was about your age, 28. Like I've told you before, like I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but being a flat rate technician, trying to earn a living doing oil changes at 0.2 hours, doing flat repairs at 0.2 hours, and getting fed scraps, and getting 3 hours a day to get my 5 hours a day of flat rate hours done in between the oil changes was really difficult. Finally, it took me a long time. I finally said, I'm just going to find another shop. And I didn't have to look far. It was literally the first place I called and the first place I interviewed. And that was it. I didn't interview anywhere else. I didn't apply anywhere else. So I lucked out. Matt talks about chances and luck. Mine is pure luck. I don't know, like if I left right now, how difficult it would be to find another good shop. And so you giving up is not a bad thing. But as far as someone who's influential in this industry and someone that I rely on and someone that other technicians rely on for your insight and knowledge and help and your energy. You got a lot of energy that I don't have. I wished you would have found what I found in the shop that I have now.
I've thought about it. My situation's a little unique. I actually graduated high school at the same time that I got my associate's degree. I went into college and didn't go straight into industry until about a year or two later. I had some financial difficulties, couldn't continue my education in engineering. But I think had I never went and started down the path that I went, I wouldn't have wanted to complete that education, right? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get my engineering degree. I think I might have found a home, right? The longer I've been in industry, the more I calm down, because I'm definitely wound up tight and I have a lot of energy, sometimes probably not directed in the best directions, but I might have found that home. On the flip side of that coin, we talk about greasing the wheels. Toolboxes have wheels for a reason. How many times have you guys been told or heard the phrase job hopper? Right? I've been in some Facebook pages, and I'm sure I'm not well liked because I share my opinion, but the constant discussion of how bad the applicant pool is, or how can I hire someone? They've worked for 15 shops over the 15 years they've been employed. It's almost like a catch-22, right? Technicians might feel as though they're backed into a corner. I can keep trying to shop for a shop, or I can just get out. And then if they went to another trade and they had 15 jobs over 15 years, that might reflect negatively on them. Maybe I have a odd perspective, but that's just a thought.
I don't know what that means by job hopper. Like, I've heard employers don't like when they see that you don't last for a year. It's like you worked here for 6 months, and then you worked here for 2 years, and then you worked here for 5 years, and then you worked there for another place for a year. And they don't like that because they're worried about loyalty. Yet you, the individual, also have to look out for yourself and your family too, where just like interviewees, you're interviewing somebody to hire. I don't know how much I buy into like these interview processes and all that. I don't know. I don't know if I buy into it. You can ask the right questions and give them a test or whatever, personality tests or whatever, and then have an idea of what type of a person you're hiring and are they going to be a good fit. And it's like, they're going to put on their best show for you. And then you hire them. And then a month later, 6 months later, you're going to figure out who they really are, right? Their true colors are going to show. And I think the same thing for places that hire you. Like, this is a great place to work. We take really good care of our people and all this and that. And then in 6 months, you find out that that's not necessarily the case, or the owner doesn't have your back the way he said he has your back, stuff like that. When the writing's on the wall, what are you supposed to do? Well, I've only been here 6 months. I got to stick around for another, a year and a half, so it doesn't look bad on my resume. It's like, no, I'm going to get out and try to find that good shop. So I don't know what that means, job hopper. I'm sure there are people like that. That's part of learning too, right? Sometimes you find out the grass isn't always greener, but then sometimes it is.
When you're going out there looking, say you're that technician who's looking for the greener grass. And the turning point for me, when I finally just drew the line, I had been flirting with the idea of either working for myself, going back to school, whatever the case may be. It was, I want to say it was August of 21, whenever my wife and I moved back to our home state from her job we had to relocate for. And I was just very adamant about trying to find a job, stay employed rather than go out on my own. I had fears of self-employment, and I went and found a shop. I was very, very slow and deliberate in how I interviewed them, so to speak. I told these people, I was like, hey, look, I want to find somewhere I fit. I want to find somewhere I can enjoy to work. I'm not in a hurry. I want to make sure that this is the place for me, right? And I even did like 2 days of, I went in and I worked side by side with them to try to get an idea of what their environment was like, what their processes were, how their employees felt. And they put on a great show. They talked the talk, and it just blew up in my face. And I'm sure there's 3 sides to every story, right? I made some mistakes whenever I worked there, and I'll be the first one to admit them, and I own them. I take my own advice. I look in a mirror when I'm looking for the problem. A lot of responsibility, it lies on my shoulders. but that was that breaking point. It seemed as though the grass was greener, and it just ended up being a disaster. So I guess that's double-edged, man. You can either find your home or you can be pushed over the edge.
To be honest with you, I don't believe any shop or any interviewee they're going to embellish. And it's not just with shop owners, but I see it a lot with shop owners. Shop owners live in their own little world. It's not that they're competitive. If you're not part of their business, you don't exist in their world. It's you may be a vendor, but you're submitting to them. You may be a customer, but you're submitting to them. You may be an employee, but you're submitting to them. This is their world. It's their baby. And if they don't get out of that bubble that they're in and don't see any other perspective, they think that they have the best pay plan. They think that they have the best shop, and they don't believe that there's any other place that's better to go. And it could not be more wrong. And it's the same way with techs. For years, I didn't know any other techs. I just worked so much. When I got on Facebook, it wasn't for work. When I went home, it wasn't for work. It was turn that crap off. I think a lot of problems that we see with how technicians are treated is not intentional. It is learned actions that have in the past maybe worked and worked out for the shop for the better. And if they don't get out of that bubble and learn anything different, then they're not going to do anything different. They're just going to do what they know, what's worked in the past. It's at the detriment of the industry. It's at the detriment of their employees. I don't want to say a lot of the changes for the better are going to be on the shop owners, but you know what? They're the ones in control. Regardless if we're in a technician shortage or not, they're still in control, because if they just decide to go out of business, well, we don't have anywhere to work. And if we don't decide to go open shops and do things better ourselves, then we're kind of screwed. So, we rely on each other, and we can kick and scream and get angry, or we can start moving around looking for the better shops. The shops are going to have to start getting rid of the bad guys that need to go do something else, and give those spots to technicians like Zack.
I think you said it best with the bubble. At some point, they're choosing to be in the bubble. And okay, now we're picking on shop owners and managers, who, when I say managers, I'm talking about ones that have real clout, like they have some serious pull, power enough to dictate what people are being paid, the power to change labor rates and matrix markups and all that, not just the manager by title and maybe is in charge of some disciplinary type stuff and whatnot, that we're picking on them a little bit for being in a bubble, because at some point it's a choice. I'm agreeing with you in that it's not so like evil intentions or real selfish intentions on their part. It's no news is good news, but I'm not going to put much effort into looking into this. Like, we feel like we pay our people really, really well. We take really good care of our employees without ever really diving into what is the cost of living in this area? What is the cost of living within a certain radius of our shop? If you live 15 minutes away, what does it really cost to buy a house? What are the cars cost? What does food cost? Part of it is they probably don't want to know, because it would be a very, very sobering day. Their wives have to work. Their husbands have to work. They would never make ends meet. We find ways of working around vehicles. We can't get this part. We can't get that part. We, need to get this to work. Shop owners included, they'll find the way around. Like, we'll work that out. We'll figure it out. We can take some of those same skills and put it towards the business. And it's like, okay, I'm potentially here underpaying my entire staff 20% just for BS numbers. What do we got to do to bump that up? Like, do I just bump the labor rate up? Maybe that's the answer. But like, really studying, what does it take? And accepting that, wow, like, all this time I thought they were doing really good because, they're doing better than I ever did. And I bought a house and I've lived in it for 30 years and I'm about ready to pay it off. And my house payment's $700 a month. It's a skewed idea. And then our employees have the same issue with their bubbles, right? We all have this, I guess I know I've talked about it before. It's egocentric bias, and that's what it is. And it's something we have to fight. It's like an active fight against our worldviews, how we see the world through our eyes. And we have to be aware of that actively.
I will say that I've never been happy with my compensation when I've been in the repair side of the industry. I mean, now as an owner, I mean, my compensation's what I go out there and bust my tail to earn. So I can't complain. If I didn't make enough, it's because I didn't work hard enough and didn't do a good enough job. But compensation is definitely something that's lagged in our industry, at least in my opinion. And the two different pay systems that you've run into, at least I've run into, have either been straight hourly or pure flat rate. And I was never satisfied in either situation. When I worked hourly, there was a lot of guys that would go stand by the door and smoke cigarettes and whine and moan and complain. And, you know, they still get paid the same hourly rate. And then the guy who's busting his tail, head down, nose to the grindstone, he's getting paid the same amount. And that always kind of irked me. And on the same pay plan, when it was busy in the summer and we were busting it, trying to get trucks out or trying to, fix cars, you get paid the same amount, regardless of how hard you work, how efficient you are, how many cars go out the door or trucks. It never sat well with me. And on the flat rate side of things, it was, why am I, doing a free inspection, which let's please not go down the inspection road. I don't want to, that's a deep one. I've changed my perspective on that as well, but I would get very upset by, why are we doing these things for free? I'm only compensated for labor ops, things of that nature. And you get very defensive of tickets, and it breeds this competition or division in the shop. Again, it's attitude based. If you have the right attitude, I truly think you can succeed on flat rate, but neither made me happy. You know what I mean? I never felt like I was being compensated for the effort that I produced or the effort that I put out. I was either paid a flat amount or, got whatever I got, good luck, warranty, engine job, have fun.
Like, I know certain techs can make a really, really good living on flat rate in a really good system. And I don't know how common it is anymore. I think at the dealer level, it's super common, but in the independent world, I don't know many shops that are pure flat rate.
I would say 90% of them in Oklahoma City are flat rate.
Really? That many? Wow.
Oh, yeah. You know why? Because the shop owners don't know any better. In their mind, they can't put the puzzle together on how to pay someone hourly or salary. They can't do it. This is how we pay. And a lot of reason is because they don't do the books. They don't do the numbers around here. They're grease monkeys. And they own a business. They don't want to do the book work. They don't want to do the numbers. They could give a crap. We just put them on flat rate. We have the constant flow of cars coming in. If we need more money, we just turn more cars. I've heard it before where if you pay a tech too much per hour, they'll just slow down. And it couldn't be more wrong. But I've heard that there's a balance, well, if you pay them, you need to see how many hours you need them to flag, and then you need to target what they should make. That's just such a backwards thinking. It's a control thing. I don't want to shame people for the things that they've done in the past and the way that they run their business or the way that they do this job, be in this industry or anything like that. He's told me before, doing oil changes for basically $4 an oil change. And he's going, well, F that, that's stupid. I wouldn't do that, and I'm going, come on, man, don't make me feel that bad about it. Like, this was 10 years ago. The fix for everything in our industry, it's not, the salary's not the fix. The only thing I can say is education is going to be the fix. It's the fix for actually pretty much everything in the world. Our brains can comprehend a lot. Our hands, our body can do a lot. We can work really, really hard. If we spend that energy and we work on the wrong things, we don't direct our energy in the right way, we'll never get any better. And so I believe that education will be the fix for our industry. I think it's going to be kind of a requirement, but that will lift so many shops out of this, I don't know what we would call it right now, a slump. I wish it would have happened sooner. we've got such an uphill battle. And how do I reach these other shops if I'm not working for them? You know, I have to get in the ear of their technician. I'm not going to get in the ear of their owner. That is not going to happen. They're not going to listen to me. But right now they will listen to their technician because they're going to go, oh, crap. Yeah, you know, I probably better listen to him because it might leave.
Yeah, that's the thing with a lot of the podcasts. Our profession wide, whichever one you want to call out, is after a while, it seems like it's a lot of preaching to the choir. You know, a lot of people listening to this, they already know, you know, that we got to have the material out there. So that we got to talk about this stuff. It's got to be out there in the ether so it's accessible by those that don't know. But that's how do we reach the ones that don't? Not just the podcasts. It's the training conferences, the networking conferences that you see most of the same people time and time again. And like, I think Vision this year, some numbers I heard, I thought they said something like 1,000 new attendees. And it's not to diminish anything. It's not to take anything away from Vision or any conference. 1,000 seems like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing, right? If the conference was attended by 5,000 technicians, what percentage of the entire profession population? It's minuscule. How do we get all the others involved? Another sign of it is involvement with like ASE and the mobile app and reading the comments on some of the questions. Like there's a question that involves a pressure waveform. And the mobile app, the aim isn't so much the discriminating versus knowledgeable and less knowledgeable. It's really about maintaining or increasing your education level and learning about these new things. Like, so you're getting a lot of people responding, the comments, like, who tests like this? I've never seen this before in my life. This is not real world. That's a lot of the shops, a lot of the technicians out there. They have never heard of in-cylinder pressure transducer or just a pressure transducer. They probably don't even use vacuum gauges, right? That's a lot of what's out there. And it's not like trying to run us down, but that's kind of the state of things. How do you reach those shops? How do you get to them? How do they open up one of those trade magazines? How do they listen to one of these podcasts? How do they end up knowing about Vision? I think Carm was talking about, he met somebody that their shop is like 5 minutes away from the Sheridan where Vision is held. This is the first year they ever went because this is the first year they've ever heard of it.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I live in Northwest Arkansas. I jokingly tell people I live in Walmart, right? Because I live 30 minutes from the corporate headquarters in Bentonville. But there is one shop in my area, and it's actually two locations, but one shop that went this past year. And there was only two shops that I'm aware of in my area. And when I speak geographically, I mean about a 30 by 30 mile radius around where I live. This is a fairly large area for my state. I mean, there's a few 100,000 people in this area. There's a lot of repair shops because I serve a lot of them. That's sad, like, for our industry. And I've tried to spread the word. Whenever I go to a shop and, you know, perform a module programming event or do diagnosis or anything like that, techs come and talk to me. I mean, they walk up to me, hey man, how you doing? You know, oh, check out this car I was working on. It's kicked my butt. Any ideas? And we converse and I'm like, hey man, have you been to Vision? Like typically training will come up because they'll say, how did you learn this or learn that? And I tell them about Vision and they still don't attend. It's 3 hours away from where I live. It's inexcusable. And I'm not trying to put anyone on trial. I mean, it just blows my mind. It's sad to see the state that our industry's in. And as much as I have negative to say about this industry, it's done a lot for me. It's allowing me to pay for my education without getting into debt. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things to say about this industry. And I have been the voice of much negativity, and I'm probably not going to stop. But I think we need to change our attitudes as an industry, right? And try to be more positive, less negative, try to be seekers of information. The problem is how do we change those attitudes outside of our echo chamber? Because realistically, the people that are going to listen to this, the people who talk to each other at Vision, we're the same guys. It's so difficult. That's the $1 million question.
6 months ago, I was picking up parts at the local warehouse here, and a shop owner, she stopped me and she said, hey, you work for so-and-so. And she said, we're switching over to one of the major shop management systems and you're using it, can I ask you some questions about it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. We've been using it for a little over a year. And she asked me how to hide cash payments, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't deal with the money. And so I was like, but there's a lot of free training on this certain, shop management system. Before she walked off, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. I said, are you guys going to any training? What do your technicians do? And she said, oh, just the if they're having Thursday night trainings or whatever. And I said, okay, let me stop you there. When is your training conference? And she told me, and I said, that's about the time that Vision's happening. And she said, well, what's Vision? And I said, well, it's a big conference. It's 5 hours away. If you guys are going, why don't you just shut the shop down and send your techs? I don't think they did. I don't know. And that may be the technician's choice, but I looked heavily when I was in Kansas City this last, couple months ago. I looked heavily. Of course, Keith and his guys were there. I think there may have been one other shop from Tulsa that was there. Aaron Woods, he's out of Stillwater. Him and his shop was there. Otherwise, I didn't see any other Oklahomans there.
There's such a massive disconnect, right? There's nothing bad with management training. I took some management training last Vision, not the one in 23, but 22. I took some management classes and it opened my eyes. I never had perspective related to the front of the house, so to speak, or the counter side of the business. And when I opened my own business and started to deal with customers, whether it be a shop or a retail customer, I was blown away. Like I do everything. If it wasn't for me, this business wouldn't run, right? And I had my entire perspective shattered in front of my eyes. And the same is also true in the other direction. The people in the front of the house, they think that without them, nothing's going to happen. And we're both right, but we refuse to see the critical role that each of us have and try to understand how to work together as a team. I cannot count how many times the service writer would storm up angry, throw an RO on a toolbox, and the same be true with a technician. They would get mad. My parts aren't here. Get this thing out of here. And we fought. There's no teamwork. It's full of anger and apathy. We all hate each other and we just don't care. And we're back to that 9 to 5 mentality. It really bothers me that it's that way in this industry.
I get a few messages from time to time about similar situations and trying to adjust their pay plans. And I don't know that I have the answer. I really don't. The pay plan we've been going with, I feel like people like it, is that base hourly rate. You're punched in, you're getting paid. I don't want to blow it out of proportion that it's like so much money, but it's not a little bit either. It's not like lowballing you. If you didn't do anything but clean shop for 40 hours, you wouldn't have enough money to pay for anything. It's not like that, but I don't want to imply that it's so much that you're good to go either, because on top of that, we have a kind of a profit sharing setup where the shop has a monthly nut. We have obligations in that this is what pays for everything. At the end of it, there's $0 left. All our bills are paid, all our base salaries and all that. And then after that, employees get a piece of that. And it's all based on, the percentage of it is based on, time and skills or whatever. Like what do you bring to the table? So it adjusts that way. But the idea is every little thing you can do and every big thing you can do that incurs ethical profit for the repair shop benefits you and everyone. So everyone needs to embrace this and think about this. That's maybe its biggest drawback, is it's a big picture to consider, that there's a reward for you're out to lunch and you overhear somebody talking about their car problems and you go over and introduce yourself and hand them a card and maybe build up a rapport and some confidence that they call and bring their car down to the shop. That's increasing car counts. It's increasing average repair order. Like anything that results in ethical profit for the shop benefits everybody. It feels like we have a good team thing going. Like there's no repercussions for you or little repercussions, at least directly, for putting down what you're doing and going to help out a coworker. That competition isn't really there. So I don't know if that's the answer by any means, but it seems to have solved a lot of stuff with us. People feeling like they're bringing more and doing more than what just gets reflected in their hourly rates. The owner likes it because I think initially he would really smile writing out those checks, commission checks, if you will, or profit sharing checks. The reality is the bigger those checks get, the more money the shop made anyways. He's writing out big checks for everybody the beginning of the next month, the following month. That means the shop did really, really well. Is not necessarily on the hook for it. Like the shop has to do well for this to happen. And if everyone works together to keep building that, their checks keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like there's no, I'm sure there is an actual ceiling. We're not there yet. We got a lot of leeway for everyone to do quite a bit better and better and better without actual permanent pay increases, which they still get. I don't want to imply that that's stopped either.
You guys have raises? What, a raise?
But you know what the toughest part of that is? You know who the pivot point is on that? The owner. It doesn't matter what the employees do. It matters what the owner does in the end. Because you can make a shop a lot of money and they can squander all of it away.
That was a big discussion before we put this into place, because kind of my creation, but that was my big concern, is just because you decided that you're going to go out and buy a new forklift, or you're going to go give yourself a nice big bonus, that doesn't come out of this. That's not in the spirit of this. We'll just say for a BS number, the monthly nut is $50,000. We have to profit $50,000 just to break even. That's no bonuses, no commissions, no nothing. That's base salaries and all the bills the shop has, and regular bills, not you up and decided we needed a new, the shop was going to get a new toolbox. That's different. So now we take, it's like 35% and divide it amongst the employees. The rest is for the shop. If you want to, as the owner, you want to give yourself a big bonus, it comes out of the 65%. If you decide to get the four-wheeler fixed up, or, extensions made for the forklift, that comes out of the 65%. It's a little bit of a buffer there, but like you said, they still have most of the power.
I love that concept, the system that you described, because it took the good from both systems that I've experienced and eliminated all the bad, right? So instead of, hey, John, I'm hold this transmission up, I can't get this bolt started. Hopefully you're using the correct, safety equipment and stuff. But if someone's in a bind, you're not going to say, well, too bad. I'm trying to turn this 3/10 oil change out the door. I can't help you. And it also discourages that guy that stands by the door and smokes cigarettes and whines. Everyone's holding each other accountable. The entire shop lives or dies as a team, right? They all succeed or fail as a team. Shop owners love to say this phrase, at least the ones I've spoken to, is skin in the game, right? That's all the flat rate, hardcore, flat rate's the best. Skin in the game is their favorite phrase. You have that with that pay system, but there's no fear of starving. You're not going to get your hourly rate and go on a cruise and buy your next house, just clocking in and clocking out, but you're not going to starve. I really like that idea. I think that pay system is a great concept.
Yeah. To me, the flat rate thing is two reasons it gets put into place. One, motivation. Now the ownership or management doesn't have to try to motivate people. And two, they set their desired gross profit on labor, and that's it. That's what it is. If I flat rate everybody and I want 70% gross profit on labor, that's what it is. It doesn't deviate.
Devil's advocate again. 5 years ago, I quit flat rate. And this last year, I finally hit the number on a salary plus a bonus system that I was making 5 years ago. And you want to know why? Because I'm bonused off of what the other technicians do. And they're not motivated. I like the group bonus thing. You could hold each other accountable, but at the same time, I'll be honest with you, I could leave my shop, I could attenuate my skills down to a level of a flat rate tech, and I could make more money. That is very, very tempting. So I also view flat rate as evil, okay? In one of two ways. The root of all evil is greed, money, right?
Love of money, yep.
In my past on flat rate, if you give me the ability to run free like that, I'm like a dog, I just eat so much food, I die. I'll take on more than I can, and I'll push myself, and I have in the past. I say flat rate is a weapon, okay? It's a weapon. You can use it to motivate your employees. You can use it to not have to pay your employees when times are slow, or when there's a car that came back, let's just back flag or whatever, okay? But the reason why a lot of guys don't want to leave flat rate is because, and like one of me and Zach's friends has told us before, the smartest thing he ever heard in his career was to leave his scan tool in the trunk of his car. He'll make more money. I struggle with it because it's an addiction, and I've dealt with addiction in my life before. So, I can work 6 days a week, and I did. I can work 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, and I did. And something I'm having trouble getting over was the week that my mother died. She died on a cruise ship, and so it was going to be 4 or 5 days before they hit land again, before we could have a funeral, and I worked. And I was given 30 hours for one day between two trucks. I should have just said no. I don't know what the owner's intentions were. If he was just trying to keep me busy, or if he was wanting the money, or what. But I did it. It bothers me to this day. That has changed me, because I've always been I always show up to work. Why are these guys sick and they're 10 years younger than me? I always get my hours done. I don't leave on time, and that harmed me. That harmed my family, my marriage, my body, everything. And so it is a true struggle, because I do want to make more money. I do want to be more what I consider successful. I know you're saying you don't see a lot of it. You didn't think that there was a lot of shops still on flat rate, but man, I'm telling you, it is big.
All I got to go by is around what I see around here. And, again, there's maybe 20 shops. I think the dealers, so we have 3 dealers, I think they are flat rate. I don't know any indie shops around here that are on flat rate. They're all hourly, maybe some hourly with some commissions. I just don't know any. So yeah, I'm kind of stunned and saddened a little bit that there is so many pure flat rate shops still out there. It's insane to me. It's still insane to me.
How do you convince a shop? It took me some convincing. In fact, to get my pay plan that I have now, it took me leaving for a couple months and coming back to get it. How do you convince shops that they need a technician like Zack and they need to pay him? How do we keep these guys? How do we keep them in? And I almost think it's like a drug to some guys, like it really is. Like, you see how much you can make this week, The
other issue with that is, we chase people out of the profession, or we make them go into business for themselves, and then they're our competition, and that kind of starts diluting things, where now there's more bays per car than there would have been if they didn't go out into business for themselves. And that's its own set of issues. Like, you're kind of diluting the pie, if you will, dividing it up into more pieces by taking good people and making it so they're so disgruntled that it's like, well, fine, I still want to work on cars, so I guess I have to go into business for myself. And then, not that you want to stifle entrepreneurs and stuff like that, but in a way, it's somewhat counterproductive as well. And then they might fall into the same trap. Not that Zack would by any means, but
I've talked about getting an employee. I'm starting to get busy to the point now where I could truly benefit from having someone work for me. There's 2 things that are preventing me from doing that. One, I'm going to sound like a shop owner, and it makes me sick to my stomach that I'm about to say this. Like, I don't even want to go look in the mirror after I say this out loud, but there's no talent. And I say that, and I follow up directly after that by saying, because this industry has chosen to continue the same behaviors that it's continued since as long as I've been in it, we have driven the people away. And the second part of it, I could not produce enough profit to pay what I consider an ethical wage that the value that employee would bring should be worth. I'm not going to say deserves or, fair, none of those words. I'm merely speaking from economic terms. the value that employee should bring, I could not generate enough profit to pay them what the value of their labor is. Those are things that have stopped me from employing someone, because I do not want to be an ESO, an evil shop owner, right? I refuse to be the thing that I hated. Since we're on the topic of flat rate, I really hate to have that flat rate discussion, because I've got my own opinions. We could have 18 episodes on flat rate alone, but my wife is an accountant, and she has worked in the corporate side of accounting, and she currently works in a CPA firm doing audits. So she goes around and audits businesses, tries to help keep them in compliance for taxes and things of that nature. But the way that they bill their customers is nearly identical to the way that we bill our customers on flat rate, right? X job takes X number of hours, and there's some variability, but they bill by the job. Does my wife get paid flat? Is my wife coming in, oh yeah, I'm going to turn 8 hours today, but it's only going to take me 6? No. My wife goes to work. She gets paid her salary. She has benefits. I have health insurance because my wife's employed, because I'm self-employed. I couldn't afford to go out and buy it on my own. Any shop owner or any person that operates a business that pays flat rate that says, well, we can't do it any other way, you're wrong. There's no debating. There's no arguments. Other industries, they perform services that bill identically to the way we bill. They just charge what they're worth. We don't. And they pay their employees.
I really, really appreciate you guys coming on and talking about this. And I think there's more to discuss.
I would love to have a part 2.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you have any ideas for future episodes or want to be on the podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find on social media. Otherwise, you can email me at mattfonslopodcast@gmail.com. Thank you to NAPA AUTOTECH Training for sponsoring this podcast, and thank you to the Aftermarket Radio Network for making this all possible. So until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Matt Fonslow, diagnosing the aftermarket A to Z on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Matt on your favorite listening app. He's very interested in what you have to say. Let him know what you'd like him to cover and come on the show. Matt is all for advancing the aftermarket. Find Matt Fonslow on social media and connect or on aftermarketradionetwork.com.